The position of simplicity as well, I think. So much of today is about trade-offs. It's cool. Looking across all of these, I can't see any of them that would be improved by complexity. Young, old, small, big, rich, broke. It's a universal rule that cuts through all of them, which I think is really interesting. But yeah, everybody is able to find a reason why the situation that they're in is either great, but more typically not great. Because finding all of the ways that the thing that you have or don't have either limits you or restricts you in a way that it wouldn't if you were somebody else or in a different situation allows you to front run why you might fail in future.
This is the reason why inversion is one of the most powerful ways to get what you want, because we are hardwired to survive. And part of survival is threat identification. What are all the problems that exist around me in my environment, in my life that threaten me? And so when you try to think about what's good with your life, you have to sit there and be like, okay, I have to do my 5-minute journal in the morning and think and you're like sitting there, you're like, okay, what 3 things am I grateful for, right? And you have to like try to do that, especially if you do different things every day, right? But what's interesting, and this is why I think Munger was so brilliant with this, is if you frame what are all the threats that I have to accomplishing what I want? What are all the things that are going to get in my way? If I had to guarantee failure, what would I do? It's much easier to come up with the list of all the things that will guarantee failure because we're programmed to find those threats. And then all you have to do is just flip it as soon as you've figured out that monster list of the things that guarantee your failure. And then you just do that.
You know, it's a cool version of this. If you were to design a day or a lifestyle for your worst enemy who's trying to beat you, what would it be?
As many self-help books as I could, get my hands on. And then I looked around my room and apartment and realized that my life hadn't changed at all. And that was when I Googled online and decided that I was going to start a business. I narrowed it down to 3. And then one guy got back to me who had a gym. And even then, when I had my first conversation with him, I was like, I really want to start a gym. He's like, so you don't have a gym? I was like, no. And he's like, okay, well, basically, you're going to need to like do something before I can help you. And so you need to make a serious commitment, make a decision. So I thought about this for a while. And then a few weeks later, I texted him. I said, like, I'm ready. And so I called him back up again. And he's like, well, okay, great. So you have a lease. It's just like, oh, no, I don't have that. And he was disgusted. And he was like, lose my number, dude. Like, and he was disgusted by how little I had done in that meantime. And so all of these things happened. It wasn't one of them. And so as much as I could say, like, I just read this one book and my life changed, like, sometimes you have to hear it 100 times before it either sinks in or there's enough negative or enough positive or both that it gets you over whatever perceived threshold of action that you have. And so it was only when all of those things happened and I came to the realization, and I also applied to business school because I was like, what do I do in the meantime? So I was doing 4 hours of GMAT problems every day because I was still violent then, so that I could ace the GMAT. And then I got above Harvard's mid score. And then I was doing all the applications because it's something else that you can do that you can procrastinate with. And so I did all the applications into business school. And one of the questions that came up was, how will a Harvard MBA or a Booth MBA, I can't remember, help your short and long-term goals? And I remember belaboring over this question for 3 days, and I answered all the other questions, and I was thinking about it, and I was like, I don't think it is going to help my long-term goals, because I looked at the math of like, okay, this is going to cost me $120,000. This is at the time. And I won't be able to make money for 2 years. So I'm going to stop making money and it's going to cost me 120. And then the starting salary was 120, or like average starting salary post business school. And so I thought to myself, could I take 2 years, $120,000, and within that period of time, believe that I could get to the point where I could make $10,000 a month, but I would own a business rather than having a job to then maybe someday own a business. And I believed that bet felt reasonable. And so even then you're like, okay, so that's when he quit and did it. No. And so it was all of those things. And then finally the realization that it was never going to get easier. And so then the fear that I was never going to start the business that I said I wanted to someday start The fact that I actually had an exploding offer from life, which is that it was only going to get harder, and that I realized how hard it had been for me to that point to still not have made a decision. And it was the fear that I was never going to make it, which compelled me to make it. And that's what got me to pack all my shit, drive my car halfway across the country, and then and only then call everyone and tell them that I had left so they couldn't talk me out of it. And so I retell those stories. I don't talk about them as much because honestly, I blocked most of them out because I was in so much pain during that period of my life. And the reason that I'm willing to keep making content and write books and all that stuff is because I know that there is another person who is going through a similar chapter and worried if they are sane or if it is only them, and it is not. And so, like, you can't compare yourself to people who are different chapters. You just have to believe that you can change incrementally, one behavior at a time over an extended period of time, and that those changes will aggregate, that they will stack up. Because like, we don't know what the last chapter is going to look like. We only know what the next page does, and we get to write that today. And like, I was so driven by fear. I was so afraid of everything during that chapter. And so it was like, other people's opinions. What if I fail? What if this doesn't work out? What if people make fun of me? Like, I had all this fear around it. And like, the emotionality that I have now towards it is because of a mix of pity and pride that I have for that young man, the young Alex that was going through that, because I'm proud that I made it through that, but I also pity the amount of pain that I was going through to make that jump. And so I don't know who's listening, but like, fear can be useful if you know that you are driven by fear to some degree. And in some ways it's almost shameful to say it, because it was the reason that the word that I never want to have used described for me is cowardly, is because I behaved like a coward. I was afraid of everything. I was afraid of failing. I was afraid of my dad's judgment. I was afraid of everything. And the flip that made it for me was just using that fear against something bigger, was that I was more afraid of looking back on my life and never having tried. And I knew that would be so empty, and I would be so filled with regret, and that I knew that I would beat myself up over it every single day as I got older, that existence was more terrifying to me than the practical consequences of me taking a step where I would fail. And it's very easy for me to say now to you or anyone who's listening, like, of course the downside's not that big. You'll just sleep on a friend's couch, whatever. But at the time for me, it was everything. And it was all of the status that I had spent all of my time trying to accumulate. I was president of this, president of that. I'd done all the good grades. I had a good job on paper. And so whatever fuel you have, whether it's anger, whether it's shame, whether it's fear, even if you have all of them, like, if you know you have them, try and put them behind you to get you to run away from it. If it's right now, it's in front of you and it's preventing you from taking the next step. And so it's like, if you can just put it behind you so that you're running away from this future, it's like run harder away from the future that your current path is taking you towards that you're afraid of than the short-term path that running away from it is going to run you into. It's like, you either have to be, it's like I'm taking some liberties here. It's like, you can either fear the whip of the person behind you or the enemy in front of you, and the direction you face is the one that you fear the least.
Unteachable lessons.
Mm-hmm.
We choose to learn the hard lessons the hard way, and what we're all trying to do is get as many cliches into our experience in order to be able to skip over the most well-known pitfalls of the ages ourselves. Like, we know that it's coming, we know it's going to happen, for some reason we refuse to learn by the doing of others. We have to choose. We decide to do it ourselves. We're trying to like pick up. We're trying to imbibe the most commonly held wisdom that is least absorbed by everybody. Money won't make you happy. Fame won't fix your self-worth. You don't love that hot girl. She's just pretty and difficult to get. You should see your parents more. Nothing is as important as you think it is when you're thinking about it. All your worries were a waste of time. We're just trying to... The mountain of evidence and exposure is greatest, and our ability to... It's some sort of macronutrient which is unbelievably pervasive and unbelievably hard to absorb. Like you can ingest tons and tons of it, but for some reason, and what we're trying to do is find the enzyme or the particular way to cook this thing so that we are able to finally absorb it. But yeah, it takes everyone a different amount of time to realize everyone is just thinking about themselves. No one was watching, and you should have just done whatever the fuck you wanted to all along. Like that is every old person ever telling you that. And it's just a case of, okay, how quickly can I believe that the people, all of the old people, are right? Because it's one of two things is true. Either all old people have arrived at a similar sort of insight, which is that one, or they've all been inducted into some sort of psyop cult to lie to younger people about the same coordinated false flag in order to get them to do something. I don't know.